I have a fan theory about what became of an object in one movie and what the object is in another. The two movies are Pulp Fiction, which has a glowy thing in a briefcase that nobody can see, and yet those who do see it seem to know immediately what it is, or are mesmerized by it. So there's recognition by some. One of the characters says, "Is that what I think it is?" So, because he doesn't know who owns this briefcase until it is opened in front of him, having some sort of recognition means that it has some sort of fame outside of this universe. Because otherwise they're unrelated, those characters. In another movie, an object is found and lost. I submit that these objects are the same. Because there has to be a level of fame or notoriety, infamy even, for all these things to be the case. So, the two movies are Pulp Fiction and Raiders of the Lost Ark's sequel to a sequel, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which was the 1989 third installment of the franchise. And probably the best, if not the second best. So they find the Holy Grail, which is the cup that Jesus Christ both drank from at the Last Supper and that held his blood that was spilling from his side where he was punctured by a Roman soldier to make him die quicker because he was hanging up there on the cross and he was just taking a long time. So it has holy properties. It's supposed to, if you drink water from it, you live forever. In Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, it is in a cave behind traps and so forth, and it's guarded by a knight. And the knights of Camelot, Knights of the Round Table, were charged with finding and securing the Holy Grail, so it takes from that myth as well. It is chosen by a Nazi, and he picks the wrong one. He picks a gold with jewels and stuff like that kind of one, because he's like, well, this is of course the cup of the King of Kings, you know. But he chooses wrong, because Jesus wore simple clothes and sandals and hung out with poor people. So any cup that he would have had would not have been royal to that degree at all. And since then, people might have embellished it and painted the inside gold or something like that, because he probably didn't have gold at the beginning. I mean, he wasn't a fancy guy. And he was all about, you know, like, just man of the people. So, it's this kind of wooden, carpenter's clay, whatever kind of cup, and it has like a gold on the inside, so it's nice and shiny for the camera. And, you know, and you drink out of it, and then you're cured, and everybody's better. But you can't move it out past the doorway of the temple where these caves and booby traps are. And when they try to, the earth shakes and things fall and everything like that. And it falls down into a ledge, and if you try to, you know, everything cracks and the ground opens up and everything like that. But, so they leave while it's still down there. It's like on a ledge. It's not even that far, maybe 10 feet, because they're reaching down to get it. He can almost touch it with his fingers, but his dad's like, hey, you know, Indiana, which is a dog's name, but he likes to be called that. So by calling him that, he's like, Daddy, you know. So they leave, okay? But this is going to spread. The news that two white guys who, one, you know, went in there looking for the Holy Grail, didn't find it, and the place starts falling apart and everything like that. So tourism is going to increase in that area, okay? And the reason why they have barricades around ruins such as Stonehenge is because people keep on trying to chip away pieces of the stone and take it home with them. And so you can't have people chipping away everything, but they do, because it's hard to secure locations. you know? And so people are going to be chipping away to such a degree, and they're going to put like supports in because it's not safe if you want to have tourism there, and no one's supposed to know that the Grail's in there or anything like that. But somebody does know. There are the keepers of the Grail. And the same way that two white guys can find it, other people can find it, okay? It's established that it's a real thing, and if it's a real thing, it has clues, and if it has clues, people can figure it out. It might take them hundreds of years, but these guys found it. Other people, unscrupulous, followed them, found it. News is going to spread. People are going to start chipping away at this structure to the point when it will not collapse if you try to take the Grail out then. So you could have people hired to go in and find it and retrieve it. And it has all these powers, and, you know, it has this gold, you know, shine to it and everything like that. And if you took it outside of the cave, it might even like glow harder. And I suggest that that's what happened. And that it started passing between rich people. They would buy it, and, you know, someone would have it and somebody else would kill them for it, and then somebody else would have it, and then somebody else would have it. And so in the underworld circles, it becomes like its own little myth, a obtainable myth, till Marcellus Wallace hears about it. And it's just a prize, you know? Yeah, it means immortality and you don't get sick and you heal all your wounds, but it's also a prize. Like, I have that. That's the thing I have. But you need to keep it away from prying eyes by having it in some sort of case whose lock combination was 666 to just counteract the holy aspect of the Trinity and the Holy Spirit and whatever's in it, with just the number of the beast, you know, but they're both of a Christian sense. And so that's what's in the case, is the Holy Grail. That is something that you would be able to recognize. Whether or not you had seen Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, it is something that when Indiana Jones was like, of all these goblets, which one would it be? Well, he was poor, and it was the goblet of a carpenter. Okay, you know, it's just a cup. Okay, so when you see it in there and it's glowing, there's a cup in a briefcase and it's glowing. And it doesn't roll about. When they open the case, when they move it about, they don't like, oh, it's in the corner now. No, they always stare directly in the center of the case. So it has some sort of foam or whatever that's keeping it in place. And so it's kind of on its own little display when you open it up and you get this big burst of light in your face. And then it just stuns you because it's the Holy Grail. And so that's what's in the case. It's not Marcellus Wallace's soul, which has been a theory, because you would not recognize a soul if you saw one outside of a body. And you couldn't say something like, is that what I think it is? You couldn't. Not even if it was in a glass case, not even if it, and if it said the word soul on it, you wouldn't say, is that what I think it is? You'd be like, what the hell is that, a soul? Whose soul? And why would it be outside of Marcellus Wallace? He has a soul, doesn't he? And people say, oh, well, he took it out the back of his head, and there's 666 on the back of his head and everything like that. There's no evidence for that. We know the filmmaker, you know, he cut the back of his head, and then he put, you know, the filmmaker put the Band-Aid there because it's cool, something to look at. But even if you're like, okay, well, now it's part of the story, so now there has a reason to it for character. The filmmakers had a reason for it practically, but now that it's part of the story, you have to be able to anchor it in story, you know? But why would you jump to that conclusion? I am saying that it glows because it has magical properties. It's recognizable because someone said, is that what I think it is? It's in a briefcase that has a combination 666, which is a Christian trinity of numbers. The number of the beast, the Trinity. 6 is the number of the beast. 666 is the Trinity of the Antichrist, the devil, you know, and whatever the opposite of the Holy Spirit is, the demonic spirit or whatever. And the number of Christ, I believe, is 3. So the Trinity is 333. So they could have put 333, but then that's just double the holy. And this is 666 because it's like trying to squelch the holy. But they didn't use a number that has nothing to do with Christianity at all because it has to kind of counteract its own self. and you're like, oh, the filmmaker just picked 666 because he thought it was funny or he didn't really have a reason. Again, not the same thing as now that it's part of the movie. It has to have a logic. Well, it doesn't have to have a logic. The filmmaker said, oh, it was Tuesday. We were just tired. It was 4 a.m. We just said, do it. I'm like, uh-huh. And as soon as you released it, it's now part of the story. And if I can find clues to anchor it to logic, then I shall do so, which I have done. And that's my theory. Thank you.